We started doing the layout when I was a little kid. My dad had a real interest in trains, in O-gauge Lionel trains. But actually, my Uncle Julius bought me the first engine you'll see in 1938. At that time, Hudson had built an engine, a 600, and put it out, and it was just beautiful, but it was expensive. So a year or so later, in 1939, they did I think it's a 660. It was less expensive, but still very nice. I've had it for almost 80 years now, over 80 years, and still runs like a top. So that was the original train that we had in Louisville. And then my dad went down the basement of our house there and started doing layouts and building mountains, and I got interested in that, and we did a layout. I was thinking the other day when I started sneezing that I always got sick at Christmas. I never missed a day of school, but I always got sick at Christmas, and the train was in the basement, and my mother didn't want me to go down there. So here's my father and my mother arguing about is he gonna go down the basement with his cold or isn't he? And my dad usually won out. My mother didn't get new carpet and we got trains. And when my folks passed away, I picked it up. I don't think my sister had any interest in it. I put everything in boxes after we left and during my early years. At one time in Fort Wayne, I had it out for a short time, but I didn't have very much out. I built a small layout in the basement of our house in Fort Wayne, but most of it stayed in boxes. It was literally in boxes since 1957. And when we moved here to Indianapolis, I had to make a decision. I was sitting there one day and here are all these boxes. What am I going to do with this stuff? Am I going to sell it or am I going to put it up? So I made a decision to go ahead and do a layout. I had the help of a couple of people. Charlie Pfeiffer helped me build the tables. He built the tables for me. And a guy named Paul George. Paul's in his 80s now. He's a train genius. He helps with the Idle George train layout, and he came and worked with me for several days. Because when I was a kid, I'd wire something, and then I'd build a mountain over it, and then the wires would be wrong, and I'd tear everything down, and I got tired of doing that. So he helped me in with a different kind of wiring setup. And Steve Nelson helped me actually put this track in, this elevation. And it was, it's made a big addition to the layout. And my grandchildren have helped me with a lot of the building and the layout and their thoughts on how things should go. They own it. They will be in charge. I've tried to have different areas for different things around the layout, as you will see. This is Disney World. We started building this a few years back because all of my grandchildren love Disney World. What you see here was all given to me by my children, my adult children. My daughter had an office in Chicago at one time, and I had gone to Chicago and was down in the basement of the Drake Hotel and saw some of these things. So I called her. I said, "You want to get me something for Christmas? I'll tell you exactly where to go." Well, she called me back a day or so later and said, "Dad, they sold out." Well, she bid. And at Christmas, a lot of these things showed up. Up on the hill, we have the Cyclone, which is a roller coaster that was at Coney Island in New York. And my son-in-law, who's from New York, recognized it immediately when I got it. If you're a train person, you go to York, Pennsylvania, twice a year. That's where all the big shots show up. They have a lot of very, very creative people. And so when Gail and I were there a year or two ago, I saw the Cyclone that this guy had made, and I was convinced I needed the Cyclone. And it's been a great roller coaster. We put together the baseball field because most of my grandsons either have or are playing baseball. And I thought it would be good to have a baseball field. This is our newest addition, the zoo, and my granddaughter Elle helped me design this. He wanted the zebras and the giraffes and the lions and elephant and the bears and the emus, I guess, and then a few rhinos in the water. Coming up on the mountain now, and I built that right from the start. Yeah, you build in several different ways of doing it. Styrofoam behind it, but you basically set up a superstructure and then use roll plaster and bring it down the way you want to. And they've got some wonderful products. I use Spectra Mold. I just love that stuff, and it will allow you to make rocks and to contour the landscaping, and then once it dries, then you work on painting it, and that's kind of an art form. Not that I'm an artist, but you get a lot of fun out of airbrushing it and doing all kinds of things like that. Along with the mountain, we painted the walls around here, and Gail is responsible for all the clouds. I did the hanging clouds, but she did all the clouds on the wall. And there are 3 peaks near Lucerne. You can see the Jungfrau, the Igor, and the Minch, the 3 mountains. So I tried to copy that, but it's a weak copy, but it's fun to do. And we have reindeer on the mountain. We tried to put a glacier with the blue ice to make that look a little authentic as we get above the tree line, so to speak. This is the neighborhood, the subdivision, if you will. And these 2 houses closest here, my dad and I built in the early 50s. A lot of those buildings that we built, obviously by now, have fallen apart. But these 2 have sort of stayed together along with some other ones we have. And so I've incorporated them into the neighborhood. So we tried to do that with a pond and some fishing and boating, and since a lot of the kids play soccer, to have a soccer field on the other side. A fellow asked me yesterday, he said, "Do you want the tractor in there?" I said, "That guy's mowing the grass." This is the trailer park. Every city has to have a trailer park. These trailers, one of them I had for a while, and the other 3 came out a couple years back, and so we built a trailer park. This is sort of the yard area where we keep a lot of the trains that we aren't currently using. The building back here, that's the station, kind of an overlook station, once again is another building Dad and I built probably about 1949 or something like that. We're going to run the log loader. Come to the ranch, and I tried to build the ranch like a ranch out west, maybe in Utah, with red rocks and water and barns and combination of some cows and lots of horses, and so a southern Utah ranch, if you will. We go on a boat trip every year down to Dale Hollow, which is on the Kentucky-Tennessee border. I spend a lot of time on the shoreline picking up rocks. And then my grandkids find rocks along the side of the road. And then what I've done with some of the rocks is I've actually painted them a little more red so that they would kind of fit in with the landscape of Zion and Bryce and the great national parks in southern Utah. But I have to say that the vast majority of the rocks have come from Dale Hollow. This area, it's kind of an industrial area. We start with a grist mill, which one of the fellows at York built for me, and I built a waterfall next to the grist mill. People told me not to do that, but they said it would leak. I I was watching TV one night with that guy that works on his gutters and sprays them so they don't leak with that stuff. And I went and got a can and I sprayed it 3 times, and then I painted over the top of it. It doesn't leak, so give the guy credit. And then I elected to kind of put a park area here in the center with a gazebo and some picnic tables. There's some interesting buildings here. I had to have a train station for the elevation. I mean, like in Chicago, if you have the L, you have to have an elevator. I built an elevator to go up to the trains. If we start over at the end, we have Kenley's Supermarket. Howard Kenley just died. He had 3 supermarkets in Noblesville. He was my daughter-in-law's grandfather, and a great guy with a great family that's done a lot in this part of Indiana with his sons, Luke and David. But anyway, when I got the supermarket, I thought, that ought to be Kenley's Supermarket. So there you go. And then we have the other various buildings, repair shops, motorcycle shops, shops under construction, the gas station. This is a door factory here. Some of these cars, like this, I've had ever since I was a real little kid. Friends of my dad gave him those trucks, and I've used them. Well, we just added the cars with the headlights. They've just come out with those recently. The truck here has headlights on, and the police car has headlights on. A lot of the stuff, like the flowers and things, I go to Michael's, and I go to the flower place. You keep looking, and you find something. I can cut the top off of that, and that might make a great bush. So it kind of keeps you thinking every time you go into those hobby stores. Well, this is Main Street. So this is the first thing we built when we set up the layout. My dad and I had built a church like this out of cardboard, and it fell apart. But I still had it, and so I rebuilt it out of balsa wood. It's pretty much exactly like we had there, with the cemetery beside it, and then the various buildings, various shops and stores and feed mills down the street. I think it's any town in Middle America, I think, or anywhere in America, frankly. Well, we have 4 trains that we can run at once. Of course, the Hudson, which is obviously my favorite. I first took the Hudson out of the box after many, many years. I took it into one of the local stores, one of the guys that repairs trains, because I wanted to have it serviced before I ran it for the first time. So I put it on the counter, and he walks in and he goes, "Is that what I think it is?" I went, "I think it probably is what you think it is." And the guy started to cry. He got so emotional because he'd never seen one, and it was kind of interesting for me because it was sweet. It really was sweet. It was. I think my Uncle Julius would have appreciated that. By the way, it has been on Antique Roadshow. It did make it to Antique Roadshow time. And then the second train is the Alaska, and when Gail and I went to Alaska, what you do is you ride a train called the McKinley Explorer. And I looked for those cars. Finally, they came out with the observation cars just like the McKinley Explorer. So I had to have that. So I got that 2 years ago for Christmas. And then we have a New York Central, which we'll run, which is a passenger car setup, which I think is really good. And then finally, a freight car with some coal cars that we run around the inside of the track. So those are the 4 that we run. There's one other car, one other train I've had since the 50s, and that's the Santa Fe. My dad purchased this in Louisville about 1952 or 53. One of the problems you have with older Lionel trains is they don't quite pick up the electricity from the track as easily as the new ones. down to kind of show off some of the buildings. A lot of these new buildings have what's called LED lights. They're not the old bulbs now. You look around and many of these buildings are run by regular 10-watt bulbs. But the LED lights, they don't quite show up as much. And so if you turn the lights down, you can see the lights in the stores such as Kinley's Market and the bike shop, and a lot better. So there are times when we come down and turn the lights down and run the trains in the dark. Well, as I get older, this will probably disappear. My grandchildren will take what they want of it, and the rest of it we will donate, probably to the Riley Children's Hospital, if they want it. But I want the grandkids to have a shot at it if they're interested. But it's been a lot of fun to do, and it's one of those kind of things in life where you do something and you like it, and that's what really counts. I mean, I know that sounds selfish in a way, but it's something that you enjoy, and if somebody else doesn't, it's okay.